morning and welcome to Resolutions for Recovery. This show is dedicated to standing in solutions for substance use disorder. We've been standing in the problem long enough. Thomas Hope Foundation just strives to be the person that I wish I could have called before I lost my son. So that's what we strive for every single day. You become part of our family. We're not going to let you go. We're going to see you through what we need to see you through and get your loved one into whatever treatment model that suits them at the moment in time that they are. And my special guest today is Mr. Paul Ferretti, who is just a rock star of a recovery coach.
Thank you.
A man of faith,
Yeah.
Father's Initiative, 12-step.
Spiritual direction, life coaching, anything that
has to do with life.
Exactly, any kind of recovery.
And recovery.
Not just substance use, just
Not just substance use. And when we talk about substance use or addiction, the word addiction is gambling, sexual addiction, eating disorders, codependency. Everybody's recovering from something.
Yes.
I think that's the best way to put it.
Yes.
And we just need to honor that place. And there's just a different mindset and a different habits that need to be developed to start to unwind your mind, right?
Yeah, well, once you get to know people, even people that come into us for substance use disorder, there's so many variables with everything else that they may have going on, including the families. When it comes to domestic violence, it comes to, mental health, and, you have to consider everything in line and meet the people where they're at, in order to understand them. And sometimes, that takes time. It
does take time.
And the time, unfortunately, that the treatment centers and the mental health centers don't give them the proper time to understand really where they are, and they just move them along. So what we do is fantastic because we take the time to know them and take the time to support them and understand where they are and listen. It's not. Yeah.
Nobody needs to should on other people, right?
Yeah.
You have to listen first because people don't just get up and decide to have a substance use disorder or a shopping disorder or an eating disorder. It distracts from the very thing that you're trying to escape from.
Yeah.
It gives you something else to do. It's a preoccupation, really. And substances, since we'll talk about that, alcohol, drugs, whatever that may be, just removes yourself from the pain that you have deep down inside of you.
Yeah.
And too often than not, well-meaning loved ones say, well, that wasn't traumatic. It really doesn't matter what's traumatic to me. If it's traumatic to you, I don't have to agree or disagree, right, with how you're feeling.
Exactly.
But I have to honor it.
Yeah.
I have to honor the place that it put you in. So I just, everybody, I've been sporting a cast and everything else for a long time. So I'll use this example. The physical therapist told me a year from now I should have 80% use back of my wrist. And I said, don't speak to me in those terms because I won't have it, right? Meaning, if you tell someone, not everyone, but there are people that if you tell them what their life is going to be, that's what they accept what their life is going to be without stepping out of their box.
Right. Well, I try to share with people a little bit like we spoke about yesterday, that automatic answer and response. It was great that you responded that way because hopefully the therapist that's working with you will acknowledge that.
Yes.
For further patients along. And, I agree with you because the biggest part of working with people with substance use disorder is being able to encourage them that it's done. They can do this. And if we also take half measures helping them, that's going to affect them in a big way too. And I'm glad you mentioned trauma. Trauma for someone could be the smallest thing.
Absolutely.
Somebody getting rear-ended in a car could be trauma.
Yes.
With no one hurt, car not damaged, but it still could be trauma, because every time they see a car coming behind them, they remember
go back to that moment, right?
As easy as like what you just said, that 80% and 100%. It impacts people in so many different ways. And that's why I love what we do, because we're able to step out of the box.
Yes.
And not just do the standard of the procedure of what people think is the procedure of recovery.
Correct.
You know,
correct.
And it gives us,
and because there's no one pathway.
Right.
People are going to find what works for them.
Exactly.
What feels good inside of you may not feel good, you know, inside of the next guy that comes along.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a definite pathway, you know, and how you reconcile your own hurt. You know, people always say to me, "Oh, you're so strong. You're so this. You're so that." By the grace of God, I have a different resiliency of my human spirit. Right?
Yes.
That can't be measured with anyone else.
Correct. That's your own.
It's my own.
That's
so
a
how
God's
I
gift.
work through things is how I work through things. I can't expect other people to work through those things. And, you know, it's funny because it took me a while to really, because, you know, I can see things. I've been given a great gift of cutting through a lot of things.
You certainly have.
But I can't expect people to see the same vision that I have.
Well, that's what it is. You mentioned the gifts from God. You know, that God, we're all, everyone is an individual spirit.
Yes.
You know, and we all were born to this with our own gifts. And, you know, and God places us in situations and circumstances to recognize those gifts. You know, the most important part of recovery, I believe, from not only just myself, is bringing people to the understanding to recognize their gift and recognize their spirit. Because, you know, a lot of people who suffer from any kind of substance use, mental health, any disorder, they consume themselves as that's who they are.
Correct.
And they label themselves,
yes.
You know. And I try to, when I'm working with individuals, or whatever the case may be, encourage them to find who they are, not what they are. Don't label yourself.
Don't label. Yeah. You know, even in 12-step fellowship, hi, whoever, right. I'm alcohol, I'm whatever. I love the new terminology. Hi, Mary. I am a person in long-term recovery. Different. It's a different feeling to your soul.
Yeah, I'm in recovery myself, and when I share at a meeting and I raise my hand and say, "My name is Paul, and I'm sober by God's grace and mercy," because really that's the only thing that took me out of where I was, you know, and the wonderful angels that performed for me that He sent.
You know, Nancy Beckett Lawless, that retired from Seafield, and I still remember her saying, the people with long-standing recovery found their higher power.
Yes.
And whoever their higher power is, it's not me to judge who their higher power is either, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Everybody is in an individual. My higher power, I call God. I don't judge anybody else's higher power. But she said, in her 30 years doing what she did, the people that had sustained recovery found their higher power. It's just surrendering to another level, right? People don't like to give that up.
Yeah.
But you got to give it up.
Well, it's the toughest thing for people in any kind of recovery, because of the simple fact that when they feel like when they're giving it up, they have nothing left to fill the dead spot. And, you know, that's our job, to move them along, and by getting to know them and meeting them where they're at, it makes our job so much easier, because we recognize what's holding them back from it, you know. And, you know, no matter how long, what time period it takes, you know, some people are able to recognize that for themselves almost immediately, and some people, it just doesn't happen that way. But as long as
some people, their journey can be 25 years doing really horrific things.
But also too, they could be clean. They could be clean abstinent and live for 25 years and not find that spirit and be miserable in it.
And be miserable in it.
What I find too is most people, in most cases, search other things outside of themselves to fill that hole.
Yes.
When they take the substance away. So, whether it be money, cause, prestige, whatever, it does anything to fill that, to make them feel whole. And my goal is, when I work with people, is to allow them to fill that hole from the inside out, not the outside in.
Yes.
That's very important.
It is very important. It's finding yourself. Right. It really is. It's finding yourself. It's really hard work. And your trauma, you could be 40 years old and your trauma could have happened when you were 9 years old.
Yes.
And life adds layer upon layer upon layer of circumstances, right, and experiences that also have caused you to become the person that you are.
Yeah. Some people are just products of their environment also.
Correct. Listen, life is not, I was going to use the Bill Cosby show, but that's not really a good example.
No. No.
But we don't live in a 30-minute sitcom that all problems are resolved in 30 minutes.
Right.
And not all people have loving family circumstances. Right. So sometimes it's just being the family that you don't have.
Yeah. And working with the families also is fantastic because
fantastic.
Sometimes it's a struggle for us when we're working with the families because their love for their child and their situation, it takes them to feel like they have to give so much more and let go, and because once we use the word sickness, that's what they look at, with a disease. When they hear that word, parents seem to they enable. And
so let's give the definition of enable, Paul, because doing things for others that they are perfectly capable of doing for themselves is enabling.
Yes.
It is not easy to stand and say, I'm right here, I got you, but you have to do this. You have to make all these phone calls for yourself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. How can I help you with your recovery today? I'm 100% bought into your recovery. What are you willing to do today?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But providing rides and doing all these things for perfectly capable adults when they need to build life skills. And those are life skills. How do I get from point A to point B without relying on solely my parents? Right? Yeah. Or my family members, or my loved ones. I need to rely on a community of people that are certainly willing to help me in my journey.
They have to step out of that box.
They got to step out and rely, right? And we are a society now that is so disconnected. So, I'll talk about the other day at physical therapy. I watched this young man working on his knee injury or whatever. He never put down his phone. So he was falling out of exercise because he could not put down his phone, not even for a second, until the therapist, and it was actually, he was like, hey, phone boy, put it down.
Yeah.
You're here for an hour.
There's a situation.
You're going to be okay without your phone for a minute.
Yeah. You get that a lot, too. You go to restaurants today.
Absolutely.
The whole family sitting there. Everyone is on the phone. There's no...
People need to disconnect to reconnect. Because when you isolate your trauma, your demons, everything grows.
Yeah.
Everything grows in the dark, right? Bad things grow in the dark and allow things to fester in your mind. And that's the word that I want to, that word's been on my mind since this morning.
Okay.
Festering, growing, like a bad sore. And it's going to take over. Clear it out, reconcile it, and be done with it.
Yeah. What is it that's causing it? That's the biggest factor.
Right.
It could be the simplest things.
It could be the simplest things, but the very things that you think are causing it have nothing to do with it. But if I can place the blame on you, and I love the one, point the finger at you, 4 fingers is still pointing back at me. Yeah. So what's my culpability, right, in any circumstance. What can I do to control my life? Because that's the only thing we're capable of doing in the world, right?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've been doing working on modules for mindful-based recovery, and you know,
Is that smart recovery?
No, it's just
this is mindful.
mindful-based recovery, mindful-based recovery system. Basically, what it is. I'm on the 4th module now, and you know, I always felt like I'm pretty mindful about my
You are very mindful.
my immediate where I am, and I'm pretty grounded in that. But it's fantastic how much. When I was going through these modules, I had no idea there was so much more to it.
Yeah.
And you know, like you were just sharing.
Like an example. Give me an example.
Well, basically, like, you know, I'm standing outside, for instance, and, you know, I'm whatever I may be doing, you know, I'm usually focused on a purpose, you know.
Okay.
So I go on prayer walks in the morning.
Okay.
You know.
I love that.
Yeah, I do. That's my moment. I pray in the morning when it's nice out. Winter times I stay inside. But I go on prayer walks in the morning, and I always, you know, try to meditate in my walk, you know, and before I speak to God and talk with Him, and, you know, of course, listen. And that's my listening point. When I'm done pray in my prayers, I continue to walk. And, you know, I just feel the presence of where I am. But so, like, an example would be paying attention to my breathing while I'm walking, the sound of my footsteps when I'm on wherever I'm walking, the sounds of birds chirping, the wind blowing, the leaves moving, all these different things that, you know,
we take for granted.
Exactly, and when you
sound of a baby giggling.
Oh, that's one of the most beautiful. We had the blessing of experiencing something close to that.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
I mean,
awesome.
we can share that. So what do we do at Thomas's Hope?
Yeah.
We meet people where they are, certainly.
This is one for the books.
A young man coming out of detox. Paul was his escort. We brought him over to where his girlfriend was delivering their baby, and we waited and then transported him directly to treatment. And now we're going to take him on a journey on how to be a man worthy of love and respect, a father,
absolutely,
and a presence in his family's life that goes well beyond not just doing substances. Because now we're going to create, right? We'll help him create the world he wants to create. Just going to be there to say, hey, we got you. That's okay.
It was a beautiful experience.
That was a beautiful experience. That was pretty, you know. Meanwhile, I was dodging a lot of bullets behind because timing was, oh, yes, they're in the car. But a lot of traffic in the circle. I know we have a 2-hour drive, but oh yeah, they're almost there.
Yeah, and it was incredible because you know how it all unfolded too. Like, for instance, when the Uber driver was in recovery, 33 years recovery. I know him for a long time. And that was a great experience because, you know, the poor gentleman got it from both ends all the way for the 2 hours to Staten Island.
And got his first 24-hour coin.
Yes, he gave him a coin.
You know, those are God winks.
Yeah.
So we could just simply say, gee, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
What a coincidence. But everything that I know this for a fact, Thomas and I have a God-given purpose. And my son did his journey, and he did his journey well. And his journey taught me many things. And I will stand there and be the light out of the darkness, right? But those are God winks. That's our message.
Yes.
I'm already where you're supposed to be. I've already cleared the way. Just walk out in faith.
Faith is the biggest thing.
Faith is the biggest thing. And I tell people all the time, I'm always willing to step off the cliff. I'm either going to fly, I may get banged up a little bit, but I'll always be caught. And that's okay.
And that's also a big part of Thomas's hope, too. Like yesterday, myself and a colleague, we went to a treatment center.
Yes.
And, you know, the biggest questions were, are you going to stay with us? Are you
Yeah.
going to continue to work with us? Like when we leave, are we going to be safe? Are we going to be okay? Or is this you just doing one thing or two things for us and then wish us good luck?
Yeah.
And it was great to be able to answer them and say, no, we will be there.
Yes.
We will meet you where you're at. And, you know, we got a pretty good outcome yesterday. You know, for
You
our
had a
first
phenomenal
one,
outcome
you know.
because people are so, you know, the pure reality of, and we're not treatment, right?
Right. No,
We're not treatment.
not treatment at
We're
all.
not clinical at all.
Nope.
We're just human.
That's right.
We certainly have a skill set being peer recovery coaches. You are also a CASAC. You're a certified alcohol, substance abuse counselor. So you do have clinical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's not the hat that we need to wear, because in treatment is their bubble, right?
Yes, exactly that.
Food is delivered. You have a bed over your head. You're not worried about the basic necessities of life. But once you leave there, if you're homeless, you're not going to stay in recovery. If you're going to continue to be beat up in the way, if you don't have somebody to say, okay, let's start with, here's your chores for today, A, B, and C. Let's get this done. And build those steps that are necessary, life skills.
Which is a lot of people do not have.
They don't have that.
And like, you know, a lot of the questions that they were asking yesterday, you know, they were not only concerned if we were going to stay with them, you know, they were concerned that they were going to end up in the exact same place they were when they walked into treatment. And, you know, that's our goal when we're working with them, to encourage them, find out what they want to do, find out if they have the skills. There was a gentleman there yesterday that didn't know how to read.
Oh,
You
my
know,
goodness.
and he asked if we can help him with that. And I said, absolutely. You know, we
Wow.
can set you up with vocational counseling and they'll guide you in the path. Another gentleman, his only goal was to get his GED. You know, and then he said, after that, I'll figure the rest out, what I want to do, but I just want to accomplish that. That gentleman was in his late 40s.
You know, people, the mindfulness of just being kind.
Yes.
In our daily walk, you know, so many times you encounter somebody in the store, on the street, certainly driving. You don't know what's going on in their world that day.
Right.
So why think the worst and why react with anger all the time?
Well, that's that mindful part again. We have to be considerate of others, you know, and it goes to, you know, it doesn't matter where we're at, where others are at. It matters what we're doing with where we're at.
Yes.
You know, and you know, when I would speak with someone, even in a confrontational manner towards me, you know, I do my best to just humble myself and listen, because, you know, I can use a perfect example. This morning, a gentleman needed a ride to the expressway.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little frustrated I was running late and I was running behind, and I was getting on the expressway anyway, but just he was going west, I was going east. So I reacted for a short period of time, and that's like in a negative way, and said, you know, listen, man, I'm going the other way.
Right.
And he's like, but you're still going to the expressway.
Right.
And then, you know, I realized in that moment, because of mindfulness, I had to stop. Why am I so frustrated with it? It's really not that far out of my way. And, you know, I apologized to him. And I said, you know what? I'm sorry. Please hop in the car. I'll give you the ride. You know? And he was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you out. I said, you didn't put me out. You know, it was me.
Just where I was at.
It was just where I was at, and I do apologize. The mindfulness, and that's, again, we're going back to the course that I'm doing. You know, you pay attention on the moment where you're at.
That's the only place that we ever have.
Right.
You can live in the past.
Exactly that, yes.
And you can live in, if I lived in the past, through everything that I've lived through, I would not get up in the morning.
Yeah, you
I
can't
would
move
not.
forward.
And I can't change what's happened in my past. I can learn from it, I can reconcile it, and I can put it to bed.
When I work with people, including myself, who with trauma is, and I use this often for myself, what happened then isn't happening now.
Correct.
And what are we going to do with what's right now? If we take care of that, what's behind us really won't affect us like
Correct.
it does anymore.
Right.
And, sometimes, you have to experience that trauma in order to get through that trauma.
Yes, you do.
Right, but experiencing it with a tool that'll help you process it and get through it with tools. Again, listening to things, knowing how your body feels. Are you tense or are you not tense when situations come up? In crowds, if somebody's, claustrophobic, they get tense up, they start to panic and they need to work their way out of it, Be mindful of where you are, relax yourself, breathe a little bit, and then take yourself out of the situation so it doesn't affect you like it would normally do.
It's almost like post-traumatic stress
It's exactly
disorder.
what it is.
And not only veterans
Exactly.
are affected by that. We all, certainly I could say living through my son's death would be very much PTSD.
Absolutely.
If left untreated. So I acknowledge to myself, perfect example, I don't go to wakes anymore. It is way too affecting for me.
Sure.
I choose to see people after the fact, and that's okay.
That's perfectly fine. Who made the rule?
I don't owe anybody an explanation for that.
Right.
If it's going to disturb me for weeks on end or bring me back to a place that I don't need to be, what have I accomplished?
It's actually healthy for you to do.
Yes.
It's healthy that you recognize what you're doing and your circumstances.
And I named it. Paul, we're going to be right back after this message. Please come back and join us.
Yeah, absolutely.
One, two, three. Long before my dream of playing professional football became real, addiction impacted my family and nearly destroyed it. As a New Yorker, I can tell you that all our communities are being hurt by addiction. New York State is leading the fight in combating addiction, providing help and treatment regardless of your ability to pay. For more information, visit combataddiction.ny.gov. Growing up as a young kid when addiction was around was tough. It was, at the time, I felt like it was unfair. I had to grow up quick. At the age of 11, my father left the house after, a couple months after I found drug paraphernalia in their nightstand. And it was a tough reality to face as a young kid. And, there were good days and bad days, but there were a lot of bad ones. After my father left, we got kicked out of homes. There were people in and out of my house, and I didn't understand, why did this happen to me? Why did my parents have to be addicted to drugs? Yeah, going through recovery was a long road. When I was a senior in high school, my mother went away to prison. I had to go through my college recruiting by myself. I had to go off to college. My friends' parents took me to college. And so it was tough going through those times. But when my mom decided that she wanted to change her life, she wanted to get help. My mom got sober in prison. She got out of prison and gave up drugs and regained her relationship with God. My mother works for the church now, and we have a great relationship. I tell her every time I talk to her how proud I am of her and what she's accomplished. She's a tough woman. She's been through a lot, but the things that she's done after prison have been amazing. I'm so proud of her. She got her associate's degree. We have a great relationship. She's a great grandmother to my nieces and nephews, to my children. She's always there for me when I need to talk to her, and we have a great relationship. For a while, it looked like, when you're in it, when you were in the addiction part of it, I never thought my mom would be the same. but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can change your life, you can get help, and you can have a better life and regain those relationships and have a positive effect on those people around you. You know, I look at, you know, when I go through tough times in my life, I ask myself, what would my mom do? Because my mom has been through, you know, I always say my mom has been to hell and back, and she's doing great, and I'm thankful for it, and I'm proud of her. My father as well. You know, I didn't have the best relationship with my father. When he left the house when I was 11, he left us with no car. I didn't speak to him for 3 years, and that was probably the toughest time of my life. But we gained that relationship back. My father's been clean for 3 years. His health is doing better. He's trying to be a better grandfather, trying to be a better father. And, you know, I forgive him. And our relationship is, you know, we're back communicating, and I love it, you know. I tell him I'm proud of him as well, because it's a tough circumstance. You know, it's easy to look at someone who's in addiction and blame them, and blame them for the choices they make. But it's the drugs, it's the alcohol that have a hold of them. And it's not, they don't want to be in that position. You have to understand that. They don't want to be making these decisions. They don't want to put these people in jeopardy. They want to get help. But once they decide to get help and to do something about it, there's great things that can happen at the end. Yeah, recovery is possible, and it happens to a lot of people. You know, you'd be surprised at how many people are in recovery right now that went out and got help. People out there that want to help you if you're in recovery. You know, there are people all over who you have no idea went through, they've been affected by it. You know, whether it's a family member, a friend, themselves personally, if they went through addiction. There are a lot of people that are going through issues that you've been through. So don't be afraid to ask for help. There are a lot of resources out there that can help you and get you the right treatment and to get you back on the road to recovery.
Welcome back to Resolutions for Recovery. When I named the show a few years ago, resolutions, right?
Yeah.
I love standing in solutions.
Yeah.
We can stand in problems all day. And you can spin and have your head go back and back and back and back. It solves nothing.
Living in the solution is the key to a good recovery.
Yes.
Because living in that solution, you don't get as stressed out, fearful.
Right.
You know, and you know, a lot of times people spend so much time worrying about something later on that when they get there, it all worked out.
It all worked out.
Yeah, I was talking.
You just have to be in the place that you are, and you either have faith and trust, or you don't.
Yeah, it's simple as that.
And you can't say that you have faith and not trust. And you can't, because you can't live in fear, right?
Well, that's what they say. You know, just give it to God and let go. Just keep it up moving.
And you may have to give it to God about 1 million times during any one day,
sure.
right?
Yes, that's
and that's
for
how
sure.
I talk to God.
Those breath prayers matter.
I'm letting this go. I'm laying it down. I'm giving it to you. And about 5 minutes later, by the way, I know I picked it up. I'm giving it back to you. I apologize for being human.
Yeah.
But it is my human spirit that just does that.
Well, that's why
So it has nothing to do with trusting God, trusting myself, or, not being faithful. It just has to do with our brains when you are concerned about something, it's very difficult to let things go.
Yeah. Well, training our brain is a big factor for mindfulness
Yes.
again, because we're so used to having to deal with so many different circumstances on a daily basis today. Let's face it, the world is not easy to live in.
No.
It's just not. Anywhere you go, there's a situation and a circumstance.
Yes.
You know, and paying attention to where we're at in any situation or circumstance, whether the smallest or the largest thing, is really the key to being in the solution. You know, everybody thinks the solution part is the most difficult part.
Right.
And it's difficult, but if you're taking care of yourself, you automatically will go to that solution.
You will.
You will take a step back, take a look at your circumstances, and move forward.
Right.
You know, I myself too fall into it sometimes where, you know, I step back and sometimes I don't want to go forwards because I don't really have the answer of how to come to the solution.
And you know what, though? We talk about that with clients, right?
Yeah.
With identified people and with families a lot.
Yeah.
You don't need to have the solution in any moment in time that you are. If you're safe, right? You have a roof over your head.
You're good, right?
And you can put your head down and go to sleep. It's okay not to have the solution immediate to you.
Right. That's the
You have to have the comfortability to sit in the uncomfortability
Absolutely,
of your
yeah.
circumstance. It's not an easy place to be, but like I said, not all things are fixed in 30 minutes on a sitcom or on a drama.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Those things
so
just
true.
don't happen.
Yeah.
But if I have ABC going wrong, and I say, okay, but I'm home right now, so what can I do? I can shut the phone off and not engage in the problem anymore. I can do what I need to do. I can pray. I could take a hot bath. I could take care of me and let it go. And tomorrow it's going to be there.
Right.
But just for now, I'm going to just take care of me.
The pressure of the world brainwashes us to.
It does.
To have to respond, you know, and
Well, people are beat up. You're attached to your cell phone, so you're attached to problems from work. People can reach out to you at any given point in time and upset your, upset your evening, upset you in the middle of the night, you know, for no good reason. And we respond to it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up work because even that today doesn't end. When you go home, work's not over anymore. Like you used to be able to walk out of work at the end of the day, punch your clock, go home, sit down, eat your dinner, and you were done for the day.
Yes.
Nowadays, people, again, with the phones, they're constantly on call. You know, they feel responsible to work.
Employers make it that way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You have your emails, answer me.
Right, yeah. How come you didn't respond last night at 10 o'clock at night when I sent you an email? You know, well, I was sleeping.
Right.
You know, I was in the construction industry for 30 years, and I would have customers call me like 7, 8 o'clock at night with a question, and I would honestly say to them, "What time did you get home from work?" And they would pause and like, "Why are you asking me that?" Because I said, "My day is over too. I have a family, I have children, and I'm spending time with, you know, anything, unless it's an emergency.
Of
please
course.
consider to do that in the morning with me."
Correct.
You know? And
But you
have to have a
that's
boundary.
healthy boundaries.
Yeah, you have to have a boundary.
Healthy boundaries.
You know, and you know, like we were just discussing on the break about sober housing. You know.
Yes.
And you know,
So let's not call it sober housing. Let's call it recovery housing.
That sounds even
because
better.
many people, after treatment, cannot go back to their environments for many reasons. Right? Mm-hmm. They may have lost their apartment. They may have lost the ability to go back to their loved ones for their healthy boundaries, or their loved ones are not standing in solutions and recovery, and it may be a detriment
for them
for them to be there. It may be dangerous for them to be there.
Absolutely.
There's many reasons why we need recovery housing, but we named some of them before.
Yeah.
Building life skills, continuum of treatment. You know, giving somebody the ability to step out of life just for a minute
And
to
breathe.
build themselves back up into a healthy state. You know, if you have a medical disease, you know, physical medical disease, cancer, this, that, you get that time.
Yeah,
You get that
and,
time.
and you're offered all the resources necessary.
All the resources in the world.
You know, and well, the same thing. And also we were discussing, with the housing. And I'm glad you mentioned an outpatient. Consider more treatment. Nothing is monitored in the sober housing world.
Recovery housing.
Recovery. Okay, I'm going to try to.
We're going to remember that name. That's all, because.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important.
It's just the shame and stigma continues.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like we used to call substance abuse. It's not substance use disorder.
Correct.
Which is healthy.
Or you're a junkie. You're an
that
addict.
label again.
You're, clean or dirty urine.
Right.
Is any urine? Do you want to?
No, I'll pass on that one. I'll pass on that one.
But positive or negative test. Mm-hmm. Doesn't that sound just?
That sounds actually professional and healthy.
Yes.
But back to the sober housing, they're not monitored. There's a lot of people overdosing in houses that.
They're money making.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what
machines.
It is, Paul.
Yeah,
they're machines. Yeah. They are, People treat them really as there's a lot of slumlords, and if they're not slumlords, they're not doing the right thing. A professional recovery house, and we, Lauren and Danielle from New Hope Rising have been here many times. Wonderful women. Yeah. Good healthy food. Chores to do in the house. Who's cooking? Who's cleaning up? Who's maintaining all of those things? Certain number of 12-step meetings must be met, right, during the week.
Yep.
They must be involved in outpatient treatment. Mm-hmm. But they also offer mindfulness. They offer alternative therapies to help anyone get through how they're going to live their life. The tools that you need to have instead of using a drink or a drug that you can go to, that mindfulness, that meditation, Reiki, yoga, walking, fishing. I don't care what you do.
Yeah, it's all.
There's another healthy alternative for you to remove yourself from the world.
Yeah. Oh, and that's 100% right. And that's, again, is part of the housing problem that we're having. It's not just the fact that a lot of people are still using in the houses. Yeah. It's also the monitoring of the houses. And it's also that, let's face it, like we're talking about the truth, the DSS really needs to
DSS is the Department of Social Services. Yeah. They have not increased their rates.
Right.
For a long time, and I know a few years ago they were trying to, landlords that had a well-run home should be, what's the word, entitled to a little bit more money for running a really good home. And the ones that were not, you should be able to report so that they could shut them down and not use their funds for a house that's creating a bad environment.
There's houses
for people who are struggling with a life-threatening disease.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's overcrowding too. Like DSS will come and inspect the house in order to accept them to be able to, utilize them and give them the funding that they need in the houses for the individual. But the fact is, once that inspection is over, 3 more beds get added to a room, and they're collecting money on them privately. And even the money that Department of Social Services is giving isn't enough money to live in a sober house any longer.
Not for food, utilities, and housing.
The average person has to pay $600 to $700 a month to live in a room with 3 other people, and the landlord supplies the food that lasts barely 2 days.
Yeah.
And that's the circumstance. And then plus the overcrowding is also a factor that, 1 out of the 4 people that are in that room, most likely, based on statistics, and it's probably, I'm guessing lower than what it really is using.
Yeah.
And that influences and puts everybody else's recovery in the room on detrimental.
Yes.
And that's a ongoing thing. you know, and again, we bring up with the female houses for women. You know, there's very limited space for the houses.
Very limited space. What was it? 5 to 1.
5 to 1, yeah.
5 to 1.
And treatment centers also.
Beds for men, absolutely. Women's beds are so difficult to come by.
Yeah.
So difficult to come by.
And I believe that the women, it's tragic what happens with them out on the streets.
Well, unfortunately, if we talk about adolescent use,
Okay.
parents may, especially fathers, have a very difficult time saying, well, we're going to send her to treatment, or loving them tough enough to put those barriers in front of their little girls. Understandable, but not healthy, right? So the disease is allowed to progress. Substance use disorder is a fatal progressive disease.
Yes, very much
Left untreated,
it's deadly.
jail, death, or, right?
Jails, institutions, and death. Yeah.
Right.
It's a format of it, you know.
And then we have young women that, when faced with running away to continue their substance use, prostitution, sex slavery, so many things can befall them.
Sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse, and then we talk about trauma. Then if you're lucky enough to get into treatment and there's men there, how comfortable are you going to be sharing feelings?
And the interaction between the men and the women in most treatment centers, they try to control it and,
try to really
separate them.
Yes.
But nevertheless, they're, especially in the 28-day programs, the 28-day programs, people are all coming fresh off the street.
Yeah.
And they see a girl that they like, or the girl sees someone they like, and they're passing notes, and they go through this whole process, But in the end, that trauma that you mentioned is still there for the woman. And, it's a scary thought, because through that trauma, they want to attach themselves to someone to protect them.
Yes.
And, I have a saying.
Or just not to be alone.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Right? Not even for protection. Just not to be alone in the world.
Yeah.
But when we talk about, young people 18 to 30, there's a very strong propensity to hook up.
Yeah.
It's biological.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're fighting a very natural urge, and you see a pretty girl and you just want to be normal. Or you see a handsome boy and you just want to be normal just for a minute. Just for a minute.
It's exactly what goes on, and then they struggle with that, because again, especially for women, when they leave treatment centers, there's not enough places. Just like it was in a treatment center, it's the same thing on the outside world. And women are no different than men, fearing that they're going to end up back in the same place they started with, And
the shame and stigma, it goes a little bit deeper for women, and I'm
absolutely
not being prejudicial.
No, I
but
agree 100%.
If you have a mother, whether she's a young mother or has children, the shame of disappointing, of not being a good mother.
Yes.
She's not good or bad. She's a sick woman that is incapable of doing those very things that she wants to do. It's not out of not wanting to do them.
She's not capable of it.
She's not capable of doing it. So on Long Island, with a population of probably about 3.5 million people in 2 counties, Morningstar has 24 beds for women with children under the age of 5. How can that possibly service a population
of that size? It's impossible. It's just impossible. And I'm glad when I speak with any women, and whether it be substance use or anything for that matter, but when I ask them what their goals are, most women's first response is to be a good mother. That's their first response. They put that before taking care of themselves.
Absolutely.
And
because that's inbred.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
That is the strongest feeling in the world that a mother can have. You are going to protect your children like a lioness.
Yeah, same thing for me. I was a single
And
parent.
for a father too.
I was a single parent most of my kids' lives and my children's lives, and I took great pride in that, and I worked very diligently to be the best I could be. And
At any moment in time that you were.
right, but there was some times where I had some ups and downs with them, and you know what? That was my goal also. Get myself back on track with things, no matter what. If I was just having a bad week or whatever the case may have been.
Listen, we all do the best we can at any moment in time that we are.
There's no book.
There's no book.
Yeah,
There's no. If you read the book before you got the baby, you'd never get the baby, right? I mean, there's a lot of
You'd never
trials
do
and
it again.
tribulations, and we really, we witnessed that even yesterday, Paul.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, very
With the
much
mother
so.
thinking that it's all her fault.
Yeah, that was.
It is not all her fault.
That was impacting when she said that to me. I would say that to us and spoke it out loud. It was just like, wow.
Wow.
This is
what she's carrying.
Yeah, and it's carrying that.
Carrying the burden of guilt.
And it's impossible for her to be open and listen because of that pain and that guilt.
Yes.
And the shame and whatever she's feeling. And I'll tell you what, I was yesterday when she said those words, I was so impacted by that.
It was awful. It was awful.
It became so real.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to pray for her and her strength.
We absolutely are.
And it's just, but there's so many people.
There's so many people. That story is all too familiar.
Yeah, very much right. Yeah,
where did I go wrong? Why did this happen? But the sheer fact of life is this. Unfortunately, if your child had any other life-threatening disease, cancer, childhood diabetes, whatever the case may be, right? Would you internalize that and say, oh my God, look at what I did to them?
Right.
You didn't cause that disease either.
Right, yeah.
You didn't. Autism, the list can go on and on. Anything you want to put into place, you didn't cause it. So don't own it. You don't have to be guilty about that.
It's human nature.
It's human nature. Of course it is. And as a parent, we internalize all of that.
Sure.
You want to protect your kids from everything, but we can't protect them from life.
Or
we
themselves.
can empower them, and we can educate them and give them the tools that they need to cope. Again, we go back to all those coping skills. Yeah. And little ones need coping skills. How do I deal with the bully on the playground? How do I deal with feeling uncomfortable reading out loud? The simplest of things.
Yes.
When I talk to people about being open with their kids, well, they don't need to learn about drugs and alcohol when they're 6 years old. You're absolutely right. They don't. They do need to know how to communicate openly and honestly with you about things that are bothering them, how to cope with those very feelings that are bothering them, because the average age of onset for a boy is 10 and for a girl is 11 and a half.
Yeah, that's young, very
all
young.
Those things that you say they don't have to deal with, they are internalizing. They grow bigger. It's not up to you to decide whether their problem is impactful, because I'm sure you did it, I did it, and all too many parents in today's world. That's not a problem. You should know what a problem is. You have no problems.
Yeah.
They do have problems.
Yeah. I had I could speak highly about that with my son, for instance. In the he had cancer at 12, pancreatic cancer, and he went through some major trauma, surgeries, but by God's grace, he's 100% now,
He is.
He has a reminder, though. He has a zipper for a scar from his throat to his belly.
Wow.
And they removed half his stomach, 2 feet of his intestines, his gallbladder naturally, and while they were doing it, and had to reconstruct 2 main arteries.
Wow.
To remove the tumor, and he has half a pancreas. I get to, he came out of that very good. But then as he started to grow, it was 12, 13 came, 14 came, 15 came. And he became with my own doing, always paying so much attention to him. What's going on with him? Is he eating okay? Is he,
Yeah.
is he?
Of course.
And doing all, like, his addiction is eating healthy with me and then going out with his friends and eating unhealthy. You know what I mean? That's his
Yes.
thing, because he can't do it at home.
Right.
So, and he's gotten into his, we'll call, when he was in high school, his normal teenage mischief that came back to
Right.
get him. But like going back to bringing it back to what you were just sharing, I had an open relationship with my son. I didn't yell and scream at him, and I didn't. He got consequences, but I always imposed on him, you don't have to worry about anything. I don't care what it is. I'll always listen to you. And the reasoning why you're in this position you're in, and give you the best guidance I can. But always be honest with me.
That's
Please talk to me. Don't be afraid of me.
Right.
And
kids are naturally afraid. First off,
course.
kids still don't, as much as they may not say it with their words, they don't want to disappoint. They don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't want to share because they've already created the scenario of what your answer is going to be.
Oh, yeah, because
They've already created the scenario.
when I was a kid, I was ingrained, wait till your father gets home.
Exactly. Or,
That was
how
torture.
many young women still in today's world are afraid to say, I'm thinking of sleeping with my boyfriend or whatever, at whatever age.
Yeah.
It's going to happen whether you listen to your kids or not.
Right, so be there for them.
Be there for them
Sure.
and direct them in the, you can have
Absolutely.
many conversations. But if you're not open to having the conversation, then what are they supposed to do? Because a child's mind is still a child's mind. Their answer to their problem is most likely not going to be a healthy one, right? Or a good choice,
Yeah, especially at a young age.
especially at a young age.
Because they have that need for acceptance. They have all those things going on.
The world
the changes in their
The
life.
world is a tough place for them in today's
Yeah, and today, the kids today are growing up so much quicker because they have so much more access to things that they shouldn't really have access to.
They're not capable of really internalizing
Not at all.
adult things because they still are children.
Yeah.
But we treat them much older than they are, and they have access. They're always on 24 hours a day, too, with their cell phone.
Oh, yeah. When I share with my kids that something's wrong with them or whatever the case may be, they Google it.
Yeah.
And then tell me it's not what it is. Then let's look at them, and, okay, I guess you're going to learn the hard way then, because what else am I going to do if you're not going to listen to the guidance I'm giving you? And they're not bad. It's not always bad stuff. It's
not bad. Natural consequences happen.
Yeah, that's my point.
It's not if they're going to happen, it's when they're going to happen,
Yeah.
right? So,
If
and
the
sometimes
train's coming and it's hitting
you
the
just
wall.
have to say, okay, I'll be there to dust you off once again when you call.
Yes.
But, too many, I like to always say that to parents, too, and the great example that I gave yesterday is when you went to the bathroom as a mother with a young baby, you put your baby in a playpen so that they couldn't hurt themselves, right?
Yes, that was a
when
great
you didn't have
analogy.
eyes on them.
That was a great analogy.
So somebody coming out of treatment may need to go into a sober house or recovery house. See, I made the mistake too.
Yeah, we'll have to get
To have the natural consequences and to build their resiliency.
Yeah. Take responsibility.
Things don't change if things don't change.
That's right.
And healthier relationships can't be created with the same set of dynamics that happened prior to the treatment.
Exactly, yes.
So Thomas's Hope, we're going to stand in solutions,
Yes, we are.
and we will have recovery housing.
Yeah,
I have no doubt.
and we have a wonderful, strong team, too.
Yes, we do.
We're empowered.
The number is right here up on the wall, 631-333-0871. 24 hours a day, you can call that number. Once you become part of the family, though, you're part of the family. We don't let you go.
No going back.
There's no going back. Things are going to change.
Yeah.
Paul, have a very happy Memorial Day.
Yes, you
to
too.
everybody that's watching. Safe Memorial Day. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's great.